Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Molly, and for this episode, I'd like to welcome Dr. Lella Nouri. Dr. Lella Nouri is an Associate Professor of Criminology and the Co-Director of the university's Cyber Threats Research Centre. Lella's research specialism is in extremism, terrorist use of the internet, and in particular, extreme right ideologies, as well as hate crime. Lella's most recent work focuses on combating hate visuals in the communities across Wales. Lella is the inventor of the innovative StreetSnap app, which was developed in collaboration with the Legal Innovation Lab Wales and Bridgend Community Safety Partnership. Lella also runs a community impact project in relation to anti-hate crime, Flip the Streets, which helps communities to build resilience to hate. Alongside this, Lella has researched widely on extremists' use of the internet, including far and extreme right narratives, their dissemination via social media, and provided recommendations for policy and community responses. Thank you so much for joining us. So to begin, if it's okay, I'd love to ask you some quick fire questions, just so our listeners can get to know you a bit better. So what was the last book that you read?
I'm trying to think what the last book I read was. It's really boring, but the last book I read was a book called Public Criminology, which was all about taking theories and concepts of criminology beyond just the criminal justice system and taking them into the community to help with social justice. So not a fiction book, the last one I read, but something about it's all about how we can use people really, and how people are the best responders to understanding crime and eradicating crime from our communities. So yeah, public criminology.
I don't think that's boring at all.
Okay, good.
And this next question might be linked to that. What was the last thing that you learned?
That's a good one. Well, I learn something every day from my 4-year-old, if I'm absolutely honest, because her view of the world is so innocent and so naive and just so fresh in terms of, how they see things and what they do. And she actually taught me something really interesting the other day, which was about how the thing is, Mummy, that insects are the most important things on our planet. And I said, oh, why is that? My daughter's name's Sienna. So I said, why is that, Sienna? She said, well, bees. If bees weren't in the world, then we wouldn't be here. And she told me all about honey. And she told me that honey is the only source of food that if you have just 1 tablespoon of it, it will keep you alive for 24 hours, even if you have nothing else. So that was the last thing that I learned, and that was from my 4-year-old daughter.
Well, pass on my thanks, because I have now learned something new as well.
There you go. So if you ever run out of food, just make sure you can find some honey.
That's very good to know. What is your greatest strength?
I would like to think that my greatest strength is actually stepping back and allowing people the space to talk and to really just listen. I think one of the biggest issues we have in life, whether it's as a leader or just as being a partner or being part of a community, is that we're always waiting for our turn to speak. And I always try to not do that and sit back and actually listen to what people have got to say. And I would like to think that's my biggest strength, is that I'm able to just listen to people rather than decide what they're going to say before they say it, which I think a lot of us do. I think listening.
And what motivates you?
In a workspace, what motivates me is being able to make the smallest difference to someone's experience in their everyday life, whether that's someone who's been a victim of crime or someone who's found themselves sort of involved in crime without really knowing how they've got there and wanting to get out of it. It's very naive, I think, to think that I'm going to make a massive difference and change the world and eradicate hate from our communities, which is my area of expertise. But if I can just change someone's, or help them to change their mindset just a little bit and change their approach to life or change their experiences, then that really motivates me in everything I do. All of the work that I do is sort of like a jigsaw puzzle. It all kind of works together. And but throughout all of it, I feel like that is my sort of main goal, from, being in a conference and just making someone think about something a little bit differently, to working with young people in a community centre and getting them to really think about they're saying and what that actually means and how that might be taken by someone else, or even speaking to a news reporter and just getting them to maybe not be quite as emotional in the way that they present things and sort of tone things down a little bit. Those little things, those little changes, that's what motivates me.
Thank you so much for answering those. It's really interesting to know a bit more about you personally. So, as I mentioned in your introduction, your most recent work focuses on combating hate visuals in communities across Wales, and you are the inventor of the StreetSnap app. So, can you give us some more information about the app?
Sure. Yeah, so StreetSnap is a simple, really simple actually, but I think quite innovative solution for frontline practitioners. So that could be police officers, community safety officers, school teachers, PCSOs, anybody that's working within the community, to take pictures and be able to report on and monitor hateful graffiti that we see on our streets. So that could be anything from racial slurring that you see on the side of a shop, to engravings that you might see in a skate park, to stickering on lampposts, and to take pictures of those for the purposes of, one, understanding what's happening in terms of tensions and hate within the community. Two, more effectively being able to take those down before they affect more and more people. And also in terms of being able to, report on anything that might be quite dangerous that's happening as well. The reason that I invented this app along with my team at Swansea University is, strangely, there is nothing like this out there at the moment. So there is no mandated process by which people within the council or people within the police or people within local government can report on these kind of hateful visuals in order for them to be taken down. So each council has some sort of process, and there is this sort of rough mandate that hateful visuals, when once reported on, should be taken down within 48 hours. But there's no easy process for them to do that. And there's definitely no way in which for them to report on it. So they may be taking the content down, and that's great. That's part of the process. But they're going to keep coming back unless we understand those tensions. So the idea of the app is that community safety officers, who I work with really closely within the council, are able to then use that information to see, okay, there seems to be a bit of a bubbling around this kind of issue, and they use that in their interventions with the community. So it's not an app for the public to report on their neighbour. We've seen a lot of those in the past. Some of them work, a lot of them don't. This one is to help frontline practitioners, to make things easier for them, and to make the Cleaner Streets team, the people that clean our streets, get rid of graffiti, all of the stuff that is so valuable and we forget happens, to just make their lives a little bit easier. So we piloted it in Bridgend in the first year with some Welsh Government funding. It's been really successful. It's now used across the borough. So everybody from council officers to youth workers to police officers are using the app. We're seeing a lowering in terms of the amount of graffiti that's being seen, but also most importantly for me is that reporting has allowed community safety officers to see what's going on and use that in their intervention programs. We're now just about to roll out in Swansea, so Swansea are using the StreetSnap app too. We've had lots of interest across the country, and counter-terrorism policing across Wales are using the app to monitor tensions as well. So I'm thinking, it's at the start of a process of really helping those in the community that are working in this area, and I'm just hoping that it will grow and grow to help eradicate this problem, and it's quite a big problem that is often ignored, really.
Yeah. Oh, that was great. It's great to hear that it is doing well and it is making a difference.
Yeah.
As we explore the critical role of leadership in shaping the values and the direction of a community, what role do you believe leaders play in combating hate in their communities, and how can leaders set a tone of inclusivity and acceptance in their community?
I think the main thing that we need to do as leaders is move beyond just serving as role models. I think leaders often think it's their role to just say, right, okay, this is the way, that I'm going to approach these issues, or this is my opinion on hate. But I think it's more than that. We need to make space for grassroots approaches. It becomes a bit of a buzzword phrase, doesn't it? Grassroots approaches. But you have to make space for that. Communities cannot just make that happen for themselves. They need that space to be able to do so. So it's about proactively embodying anti-hate beyond just, reacting to incidents or saying something when there's a threat that's happening, but actually embodying anti-hate, making that everything that your organization is about, whether your organization is, got nothing to do with hate. Actually, we all have a responsibility to embody anti-hate and to ensure that there is inclusivity and acceptance. So I guess it's about eradicating boundaries to ensure that, whether it's institutional or, more subtle divisions in the community don't go unnoticed. I think in many ways, ignorance to hate or pretending that it's not happening breeds more hate. So that's why I concentrate so much on hateful visuals. When you walk home today or you go to the shop, I bet if you look, you will find some piece of graffiti. You will see some racial slurring. You will see something that's not very nice about, a certain part of the community. It's not hard to see, but we don't look for it. But if you're that person that's being affected by that, or it's about something that you affiliate with, then you do see it. And so by walking past that piece of graffiti, you become a bystander. You become someone who, well, it doesn't matter, it's got nothing to do with me. So in a way, you become part of that hateful environment. So I think as leaders, we need to move away from just ignoring it and say, oh, it's got nothing to do with me, our organisation is not about that, but actually proactively speaking out against these things, perhaps even before they happen. So being proactive rather than reactive to what's happening in the community. So yeah, moving beyond just serving as role models and making space, I think, for communities to speak out about what's really bothering them and stand up.
It's really important that leaders also inspire and equip others to join this important work. So what steps can leaders take to empower individuals in their communities to stand up against hate and promote this culture of respect?
That's a good question. And there's no easy answer to it, I suppose. But I guess all I can do is talk about what I try and do. And I think in some spaces, this has been really effective. So much of what I want to say here kind of speaks back to your last question, which is about opening up space for people to discuss things which we feel are taboo. We don't talk about hateful things that happen. We don't talk about racism. We don't talk about discrimination around protective characteristics because it makes us feel uncomfortable. Yeah, but actually we need to have those conversations to make those who are hateful feel uncomfortable. They're the ones that should feel uncomfortable. So one of the things that I do and relates to my StreetSnap app and the work that I've done around that is a community impact project called Flip the Streets. And it's a project that was really about grassroots approaches to eradicating hate. So it started off as there was an incident in Swansea where one of the community centres that has a youth club there had all swastikas graffitied on the outside of the community centre and some horrible wording as well. And couldn't work out where it come from. Had it come from people that we use in the community centre, so perhaps, from some of the groups that go there, or was it from the wider community? What made it happen? So we decided that instead of just painting it off, which is what normally happens, we just cover it up and then it might come up again, or it might come up somewhere else, is to actually use that as a point of discussion. So we met with the youth club there, myself, local PCSOs, an art worker, some youth workers that already worked within the centre. And we discussed, what are these symbols? What are they about? What do they represent? And it was absolutely amazing to see how the young people reacted to it. We were, in that particular youth club, it was children between the age of 8 and 14, I think. And they all knew what the swastikas were. They had different views on what it meant and how it would affect people. But we spent quite a few weeks working with them about, well, what do they think the community centre represents? Does this embody what it represents? Are they happy with the swastikas there, or would they want something different? And they created some absolutely beautiful designs about inclusivity and acceptance. And the idea was that instead of just painting over the graffiti, we would create a graffiti mural. with their artistic design. So that's what they did. They created their own designs around inclusivity and acceptance. And since that mural's been put up at that community centre, Mansleton Community Centre in Swansea, what they've seen in that youth centre is much more diversity in terms of who's attending. And that graffiti that was seen, which was also seen around the area as well, on lampposts and things like that, seems to have dissolved a little bit. There's not so much in the community.
As we look forward to the future, what is your vision for a hate-free community, and what steps do you believe are crucial to achieving that vision in the next few years?
I don't think we'll ever live in a hate-free community, unfortunately. But what I think we can do is make it the abnormal. At the moment, it's incredibly normalised that there's hate in our community. And I don't want to bang on about visuals, but they demonstrate that. The fact that there is graffiti, the fact that there are posters, the fact that on social media there's all these memes which are really horrible and not very nice about different aspects of the community, it just absolutely normalises hate. And I think if we want to try and rid that or move to a place where there's less of that, then we need to pay attention to the things that go unnoticed, those subtle ways in which people are excluded, those subtle ways in which we don't see diversity. Not having that silent acceptance and actually speaking out against things. Often we're tolerant of exclusion and hateful sentiments towards aspects of the community because we don't say anything. So that transmits an implied message of sort of silent acceptance and implicit agreement with something. Like I said, if you're walking down the street and you see that stuff and you don't report on it, it's not your fault, but in some ways you're complicit. It's okay with you that it's there. So I think for communities to rid hate, they need to somehow become more resilient to hate. And the only way in which we can do that is by standing out against every bit of hate that we see. If we look at hate crime legislation, for example, hate crime legislation focuses on, physical violent acts against individuals. And of course, that's incredibly important. We don't want to see people attacked. That is the worst type of hate crime. But sometimes there's just little bubblings of hate within community which are more impactful. I think it's about stripping it away and making it the abnormal rather than allowing it to be normalized.
Just finally, what advice would you give to emerging leaders who want to empower people in their organisations to take an active role in combating hate in their communities?
Well, I think in Wales we are making really good progress in this area through the Anti-Racist Wales Action Plan. One of the things I really like about the plan is that it asks organisations, people within the community, leaders, whoever it may be, to embody anti-hate. It's more than hate being an item on an agenda. Before it's something, you'd have EDI at the end, equality, diversity and inclusion, and just, it didn't feel like it was something important. It was just part of the agenda, just like any other business, it wasn't something incredibly important. And I think that is what we need to do more of. Follow the action plan, make anti-hate more than just an item on the agenda, and instead an embodiment of the organisation. Whether you're, a school, whether you're a small business, whatever it may be, as a leader of that organisation or of that community group or whatever it may be, hate needs to be number one. Let's get rid of it. Anti-hate needs to be the thing that we're prioritising. And as soon as you do that, I think you allow a situation in which people can talk about things. They can talk about tensions. They can talk about situations that make them feel uncomfortable, rather than it being something that's on the back burner. Oh yes, hate is a problem and we're not part of it. We're against it. No, we need to be more than just against it. It needs to be at the forefront, something that we're speaking out against all of the time, at the forefront, not just an item on the agenda.
Finally, we've recently added a new feature to the podcast where we kind of flip the roles and we ask you to pose a question for our next guest. Before we get to that, our question from our previous guest to you is, how do you not get negatively affected by your work, and how do you stay motivated and positive when you work in this kind of area?
It is incredibly hard, and I'd be dishonest if I didn't say that it does get to me. Certain things really do trigger me, especially if I work a lot in the community, and some people will sometimes say things to me without realizing what they're saying and how hurtful it is, not to me, but to the community that they're talking about. And of course, I it's very important that I don't react in a negative way. So sometimes you can internalize that a little bit, and that's hard. And I do a lot of work in the online space, and you can read some really, really horrible things, and that can be quite difficult. But a mentor of mine once told me that just because we focus on this area of hate, and of course I look into terrorism and extremism as well, don't let it become you. It is still really a small part of what the world is. There's this really silly but famous quote that went around in America years ago about how you're more likely to die in a bathroom-related incident than you ever are to be a victim of terrorism. And it's a really silly thing to say, but it kind of epitomizes the way we need to think about these things. Hate is horrible. There is plenty of it. There are horrible things that happen in the world, but there's lots of really, really, really good and great things too. And I get so much from hearing the voices of young people and children and the innocent ways in which they try to eradicate that makes me feel positive, and that makes me feel that there is a way forward against these things. So I guess keeping it in perspective is one part of my answer, and then the other part is just taking joy from how wonderful young people are at sort of reacting to these horrible things.
Thank you. And can you now please tell us your question for our next guest?
My question I would like to be is, I had like 3, but this is my favourite, I think. If you had to pick one moment that changed the course of what you wanted to do as a leader, what would it be? Just one moment.
Oh,
That's
wow.
my question.
That's a brilliant question. I can't wait to hear the answers.
Okay.
So thank you so much again for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed the experience.
Yeah, it's been lovely. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for the experience.
Mae un podlediad Sgwrsiau ar arweinyddiaeth ar gael trwy ein gwefan. Mae'r hawlfraint y podlediad yma yn cael ei gadw gan Llywodraeth Cymru. Our Conversations on Leadership podcast is available through our website. Copyright of this podcast is held by the Welsh Government.